Those who grew up in Britain in the 80s will recall the limited television options available at that time, with only 4 channels: BBC One and 2, ITV and Channel 4. Saturday mornings were dedicated to kids' TV shows such as Banana Splits, Tiswas and Swap Shop. By midday, the programming shifted to sports coverage, with BBC One airing Grandstand and ITV showing world of sports throughout the afternoon. On Saturday, May 11th, 1985, the live broadcast of the Bradford vs Lincoln football match, the final game of the season, began at 3:04 p.m. However, just before half-time, an incident occurred that diverted attention away from the game. Smoke started billowing up in one corner of the main stand, and people started moving away from that area. As the cameras continued to roll, flames appeared, and within 4 minutes the entire main stand was engulfed in fire. Commentators were stunned by how quickly the situation escalated, unaware that they were witnessing one of British football's deadliest incidents. Bradford, located in West Yorkshire in the north of England, was a major textile centre during Victorian times, with many of the massive Victorian textile mills still standing today. The city's rapid growth led to the construction of the sports ground known as Valley Parade in 1886. Initially home to the local rugby club and later hosting football matches after the formation of Bradford City FC in 1903. The original grandstands were quite basic, and in 1908 the decision was made to upgrade the main stand. This new structure was massive for its time, capable of accommodating more than 5,000 seated spectators, with additional space for numerous standing spectators at the front. Positioned against a small hillside, the stand featured concrete front terraces. At the back, sturdy wooden beams were integrated into the hillside, providing support for wooden planking floors and benches. Wooden partition walls and fences were erected to separate the seating into sections and shield spectators from the often inclement British weather. The entire construction was sheltered by a wooden roof covered in layers of bitumen and roofing felt. Access to the upper part of the main stand was granted through a series of 4 narrow turnstile corridors, a design that remained virtually unchanged in nearly 80 years. In fact, it was this same structure that served as the main Valley Parade stand on that fateful Saturday in May. The early 1980s were challenging for Bradford, as the club struggled to climb out of the lower league tables. By 1983, the club was teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. However, a successful crowdfunding campaign rescued the club, and Bradford FC began to reverse their fortunes. During the 1984 to 1985 football season, they achieved an impressive winning streak of 13 games and secured their first championship title since 1929. It was this victory that attracted large crowds and television coverage to Valley Parade on that Saturday, as the awards ceremony was scheduled to take place before the game. The anticipation of witnessing the Bradford team lift the trophy after so many years drew a record attendance that day, with over 11,000 fans in attendance compared to the usual figure of around 6,000. Numerous long-standing Bradford supporters from the older generation had made a special effort to attend the presentation and watch the match against Lincoln. The game began shortly after 3 in the afternoon, and 40 minutes later, towards the end of the first half, signs of trouble emerged in the top section of G Block in the main stand. Smoke started to rise from beneath the rows of benches, prompting the crowd in G Block to surge towards the pitch. As the match progressed, flames became visible, with a small portion of the wooden benches catching fire. John Helm, the match commentator, quickly shifted his focus from the game to the chaos unfolding in G Block. He remarked, "We've actually got a fire in the stand, and that looks very nasty indeed." Given the prevalent issue of football hooliganism in the 1980s, most matches had a significant police presence, and this match was no different. Police officers swiftly worked to evacuate the crowd from the vicinity of the burning benches, but no one anticipated how rapidly the fire would spread. The windy conditions, coupled with the wooden structure of the main stand, allowed the fire to escalate at an alarming rate. Within a minute and a half, the fire had engulfed the tar-covered roof, spreading through the roof space faster than anyone could escape. The roof, burning, began to rain down debris and molten tar on the crowd below, who were desperately trying to reach safety on the open football field. The chaotic scene unfolded rapidly, with many seemingly unaware of the severity of the situation. Despite the raging fire just behind them, some fans on the pitch were captured on camera laughing and waving to the TV cameras. The footage captured the crowd whistling, laughing and singing, while injured individuals were being carried away from the flames. Despite the intense heat, would-be rescuers risked their lives to save as many people as possible from the inferno. Survivor Martin Fletcher remembered the courage displayed that day, stating, "These individuals had come to a football match like us to witness their team win a trophy, yet, in the face of sudden tragedy, they became heroes of the Bradford fire." Initially, it was believed that there were only injuries and no fatalities, but as time passed, it became evident that this was not the case. A total of 56 individuals lost their lives, many of whom were attempting to escape through the jammed turnstile corridors. Martin Fletcher tragically lost his father, uncle, brother and grandfather that day. Over 260 people sustained injuries, with most of them suffering burns or lung damage from smoke inhalation. The fire had engulfed the stand and caused its collapse within a mere 5 minutes of its outbreak. When the initial members of the fire brigade arrived, they could only observe helplessly as the entire structure burned to the ground. The investigation into the tragedy promptly revealed the following details. The main stand at Valley Parade was recognised to be dangerously outdated and non-compliant with the fire safety regulations of that era. Ironically, the demolition of the old Valley Parade stand was set to commence just a few days later on Tuesday, May 14th. As Bradford's recent success had finally provided the necessary funds for a new main stand. There were multiple ignored warnings regarding the excessive litter accumulation beneath the benches. Reportedly, the space beneath the wooden floor and seating was filled knee-deep with old wrappers, leaflets, plastic cups and other miscellaneous rubbish. The fire's actual cause was traced back to a dropped cigarette. Eric Bennett, an Australian visitor, had purchased match tickets for himself and his son. He accidentally dropped the end of a cigarette on the floor, intending to extinguish it, but it slipped through a crack in the wood and landed on the debris below. Upon noticing smoke rising from beneath the planks, Bennett poured his cup of coffee through the crack and instructed his son to do the same. The individuals believed that extinguishing the smouldering cigarette would resolve the issue. Nevertheless, a few minutes later, the sound of flames igniting was heard and thicker smoke emerged from a larger section of the flooring. He hurried to locate a match steward, but upon finding one, the entire area was already ablaze. The search for a fire extinguisher was in vain, as they had all been removed to prevent vandalism during football matches. This tragic event resulted in a smoking prohibition in all football stadiums with old wooden stands. Additionally, many of the traditional wooden benches were replaced in the following years, leading to an overall enhancement in fire safety at sports venues throughout the UK. Fortunately, Valley Parade did not have a security fence around the pitch, unlike other football clubs at that time. With over 3,000 spectators in the main stand during the fire, the absence of a security fence likely prevented a much higher death toll. The police did not disclose the name of the individual responsible for the fire, Eric Bennett, until more than 30 years later. It is presumed that he carried the burden of his actions for the remainder of his life. In 2015, a memorial service was held in Bradford to honour the 56 victims, and a commemorative plaque is now located in the new Valley Parade stand.